Hey, Meesha.
Ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Welcome to another episode of the North Atlanta Real Estate Podcast with your amazing host, Meesha Rawal.
And Jeff Aughey.
And if you're trying to figure out what 2026 might look like for you in North Atlanta, today's episode is designed to help you make sense of it fast. Sales data, mortgage rate, what's coming in Forsyth and Fulton County, and even a major policy debate around institutional investors that Jeff will lead us.
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's jump right into the numbers and what they mean. What happened in 2024 versus 2025 in our neck of the woods, plus what we are seeing as the year is getting started.
We're just going to do a real quick overview, sort of compare 2024 to 2025 and get a sense, and then sort of how we started this year. So basically the news is, if we're talking about Forsyth County, let's just hit it first. Resale properties in Forsyth County, single family homes down about 4%, so not that big a change. For attached homes, no change at all, so very flat. So basically 2025 was very much like 2024. And then for Roswell, the 30075 and 30076, basically there, single family homes, sales up about 5% in 2025 over 2024, and attached homes down 3%. So again, no great change. And then if we're looking at Alpharetta and Johns Creek, single family sales down about 3%, while here there was an uptick in the attached homes there, up 16%, 185 sales compared to 159 sales in 2024. So there was a bit of a change there. And then for Milton on 3004 and 3009, sales there, single family up 4% and townhome condos up 16%. So that gives you an idea. So basically 2023, 2024, 2025 kind of categorized as low sales volume. Average national sales is about 4 million units. People just look back, if we remember, in sort of 2021, we were up to almost 6.5 million units nationwide. So pretty big drop off still compared to those times.
Yeah, so one key point for listeners is that even if the pricing looks stable, the market can still be very different if the inventory is higher and days on market lengthen. That changes negotiating behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I took a quick look. We're only 3 weeks into this new year, but we've had falling interest rates. And so I was just curious, did that really affect anything here? So, just kind of a quick, without going through all the different areas, just to let you know, it does appear that there might be maybe a little bit of a bounce at the beginning of this year because of the lower rates over compared to the same time period last year. We'll keep track of these, but if anything, I would say it's a little bit better, and we'll just see if that trend continues.
Yeah, I think this year started off pretty good.
Yeah.
You've had one closing already.
Yeah.
I have one closing, and then I just put a new house on the market in coming, and we'll talk about that very soon. But while you're listening, it's 2095 Melrose Trace and coming. It's a gorgeous 6-bedroom, 3.5 bath house with a beautiful backyard, and it faces a horse farm. Coming back to quick read for 2026, the early year markets are always seasonal, fewer listings, fewer closings. Yeah. But the big headline right now is that the mortgage rates have dipped to the lowest level in about 3 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. So if we look back at the beginning of 2025, we had rates started at just over 7%, 7.07. And now, we're what are we now, roughly?
6.17 is the current rate.
So it's almost a full point lower.
And some of the lenders are reporting that refinancing has become their primary focus because a lot of people, like you said, who bought houses in the 7.5 interest rate are like, all right, we could just get. So just be careful about the closing costs when you refinance and see if your lender could reduce your closing costs for you during refinancing, because that's a big chunk.
Yeah, and you do have time here. And for instance, you can get these spikes. We had, I guess, when Trump announced that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were instructed to purchase about $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities, rates did drop from about 6.2 that they were at the time, right down to 6%. They've since crawled back up from other factors. But I think the overall outlook, if I'm not mistaken, is a lot of people are predicting that we're going to be kind of high 5s to 6% kind of range throughout the year. I think, is that what you've heard as well?
Yeah, and that would also mean that there's going to be a lot more buyers who are going to come into the market, and would mean a lot of people who are looking to move up will also be selling their houses. So for sellers, it also means more competition, more inventory on the, for buyers, which is going to be great. And also, it's probably not the best time for sellers to be testing high prices. So just make sure that you price your house well, and the house is prepped, staged, and marketed correctly.
Yeah, so one of the things that I guess I'm going to be looking at, and it's going to be interesting, is I guess in May, Jerome Powell, who's the Fed chairman right now, is going to be stepping down as the Fed chairman.
Did he say yes? He wants to step down?
Well, his term's over then.
Oh.
Now, what's unknown is he is able to stay to 2028 and still be one of the Fed governors and still be on the board. However, he hasn't disclosed yet whether he's going to do that or just get out of the way altogether. Obviously, Trump has signaled many times that he is trying to push people into the position that have the mentality that the rate should be a lot lower. He obviously wants that to happen. Doesn't mean he's going to get his way. And as we have seen recently, fiddling around and putting pressure, the markets haven't reacted well to that. And we also have seen the value of the dollar has been declining around the world last year. It's also started off weak this year. A lot of these policies are not seen well in the big scheme of things. And so I think we're just going to have to take a wait and see approach. I think it's very hard to predict what's going to happen. It doesn't look like the Fed will be reducing interest rates much unless Trump gets a big push and gets his way. Because frankly, we have another meeting, the Fed's meeting right now, but they're going to announce tomorrow, which would be Wednesday at 2 o'clock, the January results. And it is widely expected, 97% certainty, that the Fed is not going to change and reduce interest rates again. They did it 3 times at the end of last year, not expected to change this year, and they only have forecasted 1/4 point cut this year. That's their forecast. They can, of course, change that due to circumstances or policy changes if that happens. So anyway, that's sort of the mortgage rate. So we're kind of in this range, I think, is what we're looking at, sort of high 5s to 6% range.
Yes, which is very heartening news from the 7.5%, 8% that some buyers were saddled with. So we'll talk about policy changes. Let's talk about institutional investors and what the policy change is. And we want to be precise because definitions could vary. One major Georgia focus report summarized that an AEI analysis put institutional ownership about 4.2%, Jeff, in metro Atlanta housing. So using like 100 plus homes owned definition.
So it's 4% ownership from the institutional investors of the housing, but they own about 30% of the actual rental properties. And so obviously that's what they're doing it for, as an investment. And so they're focused on the lower end of the market that are typically first-time buyer price range, right? Those properties is what they've been purchasing. And so, again, sort of a policy in the headlines. Trump said that he actually signed an executive order in January 21st of this year to restrict large institutional investors. But that doesn't have any teeth. It's not a law. And so at this point, that's just a wish.
But that's about 126,000 houses that institutional investors own. And if they get released into the market, and, like you were saying, they are like the smaller houses. They're not the $1 million properties.
Well, but they're not talking about that they have to divest them. They're just talking about they wouldn't be allowed to buy any more. So that doesn't mean they have to sell what they have. But you were telling me, I think, that there were some Georgia
policies.
The
Georgia has had multiple propositions, and the Georgia Public Policy Foundation reported, said that the House Bill 305, which is the Protect the Dream Act, is going to limit certain investment funds from buying additional properties. And then there's a House Bill 374. It is a proposal tied to creating a registry or a database approach towards figuring out who the investors are.
Yeah, so from what I've read, that while these things are proposed and they're talking about them, it's not expected to pass through any type of legislation this year. So basically, we can keep our eyes on these things and we'll keep our listeners informed if any of this stuff does move forward. The basic bottom line would be, if anything ever did happen, it's going to affect our first-time buyer price range the most. But don't expect anything to occur this year is basically bottom line. So don't get excited about that, but it is news we'll keep you abreast on.
Yeah, and there is a lot of activity going on in the Fulton County, South Forsyth County, and we'll talk about Forsyth County first.
Yeah.
So Taylor Morrison, which is one of the big builders, and they have Stratford Hills, which they're selling really, really fast. Up in Ball Ground, they are coming up with 2 new projects. One is called Adler Creek and Wade Farms in the Cumming Forsyth area. I think one is off Post Road and the other is close to downtown Cumming, because Forsyth County is trying to develop downtown Cumming as a hub for people to be able to come in, party, because you can't change how far Forsyth County is from Atlanta. And I think the policymakers have figured out that we can't change the location. So they're going to make the roads better so you can access Forsyth County. They're going to and there's so many people who've bought these gorgeous houses, but when they have to be entertained or there are like the collection at Forsyth, but they're like, well, we need more. So they're coming up with something called The Gathering at South Forsyth, which is the NHL themed arena with a funding of $3 billion. And along with that, there is Coal Mountain, which is being developed, about 175-acre mixed-use area for Forsyth County. So I think they've got it right with the low taxes, fantastic schools. I believe we can say that their government is excellent.
Yeah, we saw in the previous episode, they have very low cost to run the government very efficiently, low taxes.
Yeah. And Fulton County, is also up there with the new construction, but it's expensive to build in Fulton County. But Medley is the mixed-use city center that Johns Creek is boasting. And the AJC reported that Toro Development selected Mainsail Lodging to develop a 150-room hotel in the project. So that's new. So it'll be right next to Boston Scientific, Ingersoll, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Close to that. That was a hard one to pronounce.
The biotech company that's come in with 73,000 square feet, and they have about 133 townhouses and about 354 luxury apartments. It's about 500 residential units coming up in Medley. So we'll see a lot of traffic. Not that McGinnis Ferry was not already crowded, but we will see a lot more traffic.
It's good for the area to have something like that, right?
Yes.
It's the same folks as we talked about before that we're doing Avalon. It's about a third the scale, but it's also going to have the same kind of feel, right? A lot of the restaurants that we're familiar with here in Alpharetta are going to show up over there. Going and Lion and Lulu's Sushi, Rena's Cafe.
Yeah, exactly. And there's going to be an Irish pub called Fado.
I sounds good to me.
A Sephora, and a local grocery store. I don't know, maybe Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
But we'll see. And then so it should be interesting to see how these areas develop.
And that's nice because that one's actually going to be coming online towards the end of this year. So the residents there, I remember, being here when Avalon opened and when downtown Alpharetta started popping up. It was very exciting to live there, and a new restaurant is opening frequently. It's an exciting time for them, and so it should be great for Johns Creek, I think.
Yes. Now we've talked about what the market's doing. Let's talk about what we're doing in real estate. I had 10090 Jones Bridge Road, Unit 8 closed.
Great job.
My seller was so happy. The buyers were so happy. And then you had a closing.
Yeah, I had a client that we hooked up in, I guess, the end of December, and she saw a property in North Farm that she wanted, and it was a multiple bid situation, just been on the market a couple days, and we came out in second place. They hated that, but we did.
So when you say second place,
so we lost. We came out, they chose another offer, and we talked it over with my client, and she decided to actually put in a backup offer. And so it's something that people should remember. My brother won on a backup offer as well last year. And so just because you don't win the bid, maybe, that doesn't mean you should just give up. Because if you write a backup offer, you keep in mind it doesn't cost you anything as a buyer. And if you write it properly, you don't have to put any money up front. You don't have to do the inspections right away. You just have that as an option, and you're not even tied in. If your buyer finds another property, you can cancel that backup and just go buy the other house. So it's kind of a no-lose situation. Just takes a little time to do the paperwork. And we actually got that property for less than they were selling it to for the primary buyer. Because they took ours, figuring, because it was a cash offer ahead of us too, figuring that would go through, and we ended up getting it for less than they were going to sell to the other buyer. So worked out great.
Is a multiple offer situation, and then you won it even though you were in backup position. So that's fantastic.
And so to give people a sense of it, about 10% of the time a sale will fall through. Maybe a little less for a cash offer, but in this particular case, it wasn't because of the cash or the finance. They just decided in the due diligence period, they would just change their mind. And so to keep in mind, 10% is a good number of you might have success, but if you ever get in one of those high multiples where the price goes up like crazy, right? When you add 15 offers and it gets bid up, I think it's a little higher than 10% there. Sometimes people get kind of buyer's remorse, like, what did I do? I was just crazy, and they back out maybe higher. So definitely talk to your agent, preferably us, right? We can help them, but a backup offer makes sense in that situation.
Yes, very solid advice. And now I have a listing, like I mentioned earlier, 2095 Melrose Trace. I plan to have an open house this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, just because I want people coming in. This house is gorgeous. It's got a master on the main, 4 bedrooms upstairs, and a finished basement with a kitchenette. It'll be great for a teen suite or in-laws, and that's what they bought the house for, is for the mother to come live in the basement. And fantastic neighborhood. I can't even begin to tell you how vibrant and inviting and welcoming this neighborhood. It's Margate.
Yeah, great neighborhood. Absolutely.
Yeah, swim, tennis, and the HOA fee is not very high. I think it's $800. And the house has a new roof, freshly painted. So if you're not doing anything on a Saturday between 2 to 4 and Sunday 2 to 4, drop by to 2095 Melrose Trace in Cumming. And it's currently priced at $695, which I think is fantastic.
That sounds sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, because the other house, which is under contract and which should be closing very soon, is listed at $785. So we are well underpriced, and the location's so much better because we're very close to the entry exit and across, practically diagonally across from the pool.
Oh, I think you're going to sell this one quickly. I'm curious to see how much traffic you have at the open house. I think there's going to be a lot of people out since rates have dropped to these 3-year lows. I think it's going to get people out. So really going to be interesting for an early read on activity.
Yeah, and so if you're in the market, definitely look out for this listing, 2095 Melrose Trace. And if you have questions about what the market is doing, or you want a full breakdown of your neighborhood, reach out to us. We can run the numbers for your exact subdivision and price point.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting year. So we look forward to getting to it. And yeah, I hope people will just also send us your questions. We get a lot of them, but we try to answer during these things. But if you do have a question you want to have answered, reach out to us. We're happy to address it during the show.
Yes, and until then, stay smart, stay informed, and stay tuned. This is Meesha.
And Jeff Aughey. Bye for now.
Bye.